Yes, and we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this broadcast. My name is Dharminder Bihari, and it's hosted on my channel. And I had a crazy idea with Warren below there to make a live broadcast, and it's done in English because we wanted to broadcast something about Fuck Up Friday on Monday. I know it's maybe against the guidelines of LinkedIn, of other channels. We are not going to swear, promised. But the idea is
Yeah.
We try. And the idea is to share something about how you run a business and what can go wrong and what did we learn. Because everybody knows that having an own business is not always diamonds and pearls, or the Rolls Royce isn't ordered immediately after the second day you open the store. And there's a lot of things happening in the business. And if you watch this show, you know, it's not a typical white paper show or a fancy magazine or a glossy, because we're going to tell and share some real stories, not the stories that you hear in marketing messages, but real stories that happens below water. That's actually the iceberg theory, right? So we are going to talk about the 80% that's happening in the real life and not about the 20% you see online. Because we are on YouTube, we are on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, please drop a message so that we can answer your questions upfront if you want to share something. So I'm going to my co-host, and that's Warren. So Warren, please introduce yourself.
Hey, for everyone who doesn't know me, Warren Werbit. I'm the guy who happens to love print, has it in his veins, and can't get away from it. And I'm really excited to have this live show with Dharminder, because we're going to be doing stuff and talking about things that we don't really talk about. And that's really all the F-ups. See, I'm trying not to swear already because we don't want to get linked in jail. Yes. But, you know, everybody today spends all their time talking about innovation, what's happening, what to do. I think we learn plenty from the mistakes that we make, and hopefully we will share a few with other people, and we'll get others to share with us, and we'll just keep learning from everybody. I would also like to just put in right away for anybody listening, if you want to be on our show, and we want you on our show, you could be an owner, you could be a pressman, you could be the shipper, you could be the pre-press person, you could be the trade person who works for the printer. Doesn't matter, anything related to the world of print. We want everyone to share their horror stories. They're not all horror, but they usually, you know, got something good behind them. So thank you, Chris and your own, for joining us. We appreciate it.
So, and yeah, Chris, sorry? Maybe I need to introduce yourself.
But by the way, anybody who's actually watching, this is our first show. We are not planning on it being perfect. We're going to iron things out as we go. So, sorry, back to Chris.
Well, thank you for having me on the Fuck Up Friday on Monday. I'm glad you thought of me first to be on the the prototype, the pilot show here. So I'm kind of flattered. So, but yeah, so I own a company. I'm 5 years old. I worked for another company for about 15 years before I started this. I learned a lot of what to do, and I learned a lot of what not to do while I was at that company. So I took some of the good things and some of the bad things that I learned there. I tried not to bring with me. I tried to leave them, leave them at the company that I left. But do you just want me to kind of get into it here and just, talk about, mistakes that have happened along the way and, how to resolve, or how I think, how to justify them? Should I just hop right into it?
No, we're going to get an introduction from your own, and then we're going to go right into it.
Okay.
In all the horrible stories. Well, I have one. I'm Jeroen van Drunen from Jubels in Amsterdam. I'm the CEO, printing company. And last week to make this start. Last week I celebrated my 40th anniversary at Jewels. That's a real fuck up.
Why?
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. It's 40 years of being in the graphic arts industry, and we've seen a lot of changes over the last years and so on. Things have changed, digital, the internet, and so on. So Jubels had to change. We had to change, and I think now we're in a good position to do that. But yes, we have had some bad investments over the years. Really stupid things when you speak of it. But the good thing of stupid things is that you always learn something. At least that's the reason why we're doing it.
You hope.
Yes, correct,
Right?
Warren. And yes, I'm also very happy that I'm on the first show of those two guys. The first question was, why am I always the first? And now it seems that I'm hosting this show. That's not true, but why, Warren? Why?
Because you never say no.
That's correct.
Yeah, and you just said you had 40 years of experience, so enough to share.
And never what, no matter where I see him in the world, he's always taking a front step and leading the pack. So that's why you're here, because you're a true leader in our industry.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Darminder.
Pleasure.
So, Chris, back to you. So, what was your first? Because you can remember the day that you got excited going to the Chamber of Commerce, of signing of the documents, that you become the owner of your own business. No, and that feeling can last for a few days, few weeks. But what happened? The first thing that you thought, oh shit, it wasn't scheduled. It wasn't the plan. To feel it interrupted my happiness.
So yeah, I guess for me, it started like right off the bat. Getting into business, signing the lease. I ran a job. I had also like I screen printed in my garage for a long period of time. As soon as I got in, I went to buy my first laminator, buy my first printer. And I had some money saved up. I worked hard for it. I had a nest egg set aside. I said, okay, we're going to get a printer. We're signing a lease. So the first piece of equipment, I paid cash for it. So, let me buy it cash. I don't want to pay the finance charges or anything else. So a piece of equipment's paid for, still have some money set up. Then we get in there, then, I need a roll of material. Boom, $800 for a roll of material. Need a roll of laminate, $500 for a roll. Before you know it, there's about like $20,000 worth of inventory I need. Every job that I get, there's a different application. There's a specific adhesive for it, a specific, is it cast calendared laminate? Which one's it going to go on? Dry erase laminate. Before you know it, you have $20,000 of inventory after the first few jobs. So for me personally, if you're going to start a business, finance wherever you can. For me, like I said, I had a good amount of money. I didn't spend it all on equipment, but there were just so many expenses that you're just, so unexpected expenses that pop up here and there. Just financing equipment right off the bat, especially when you're starting. That was, if I had to change one thing from the very get-go, that would have been the first thing that I would have changed. So
always use someone else's money.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's tip number one for the audience. Always use someone else's money. Never your own money. And,
yeah.
Chris, you still have the materials, or did you all manage to use them?
Oh no, they're still. We have God, today. I mean, there must be like $40,000 worth of stock just laying around in laminate and base materials and ink and.
Okay.
The consumables are absolutely insane. Just for startup and for what I use today. And again, like, sometimes you buy a roll of material and, customers like, hey, I need this special material. I'm never going to use that again. So try to throw in there, hey, I'm going to charge you for this roll of material. It's going to be yours. I don't want it, sitting around on the floor for the next, 6-7 years and not using it. So, some of them there's plenty of stock here sitting around. But yeah, some of those niche kind of materials, they'll sit around for a while.
So quick question, because I've had that experience too. If you have a customer who's asking you for something and it requires you to buy a whole roll,
yeah,
and you only need half of it, do your clients go in and buy the roll with you or not? My experience has been not.
Yeah, what I'll do typically, depending on the customer, I'll ask them to supply the roll. I don't want to put out the money. I'll say, hey, you buy it. Maybe I'll run the proofread or whatever. No problem. That's no big deal. But I'm not going to put $700 out for a roll. And you want a $40 print off the roll. It's not going to happen. Or maybe I'll try to offer you an alternative. But I have had some of my customers provide the roll.
Jeroen, how's your inventory management?
Oh,
my inventory management. So what I do typically is,
No, Chris, Jeroen was. Jeroen.
It's my turn.
Sorry.
Hey, we just started and you already effed up, Chris. There you go. Good job.
Right?
Well, anyway, we have been around for 120 years almost. And with that history, you can imagine that we have some inventory, and we
left?
try. Well, some paper, yes. It's hanging in our warehouse for more than a decade or whatever. But the last few years, we always say when you have a roll or a ream of paper, we charge it to the customer, charge it to the price of the total product, because it's like Chris said, it's not doable to keep it in inventory, to wait for 6-7 years or whatever to sell it again. So just sell it to the first customer, and then he takes it with him, or we destroy it or whatever. We don't want that inventory anymore.
I remember with Xerox, when the iGens came out, Xerox in Rochester was stocking all of these different substrates that they had for us to use, because they wanted us to sell everything you could do on the digital. And I remembered we went to buy one thing and had to buy 500 sheets and needed 50. That was the last time I ever bought anything in a pre-pack like that. And I think actually Xerox started to listen to their customers, which is what they don't do that often. But they went and then cut the packs in half to make it easier to buy. But I think it should even be half of the half. Right?
They did it a little bit different in Europe. They sold the document supply unit to Antalis.
So they made it easier.
So made it easier.
They got smart. No, you could die with inventory.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Talking about materials, because one thing that can go wrong in this business is when you order the materials and you have the wrong one, and you have to deliver the product or the service you promised to the customer. So any exciting stories about this one? How you mess it up, or somebody else messes it up, or the supplier, and how you managed to get it working?
I think the word is substitute.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always pay the price for that, and somebody mix it up and they order a silky machine coated paper, and they send a glossy or whatever. Nobody notice, and they print it, and then you're all fucked up. And then it's my turn when it comes to the sales side or the commercial side to get it solved. That's always the nice part of my job. Yeah.
I know that.
So my question is, though, if you ordered a glossy paper and you got a matte paper, how did your person print the paper? Does he not read your dockets?
Well, Warren, you have had your print shop. Sometimes
had. I couldn't make it anymore.
No, I know. But sometimes these things happen by stupidity or just not reading, or the supplier from the paper merchant sent the wrong one and nobody noticed. Well, things can go wrong. And sometimes you mix it up, and then you go. Yeah. And then you have to tell your customer that on the day that he needs this whatever, that he gets the wrong materials. But anyway, that's my job. Do it with a smile. Eh?
So I was just thinking of what was my biggest mistake that I ever made, and I'm gonna bet that everybody listening has probably made the same mistake. And then after I made it 4, 5, 6 times, I finally learned, and I won't ever do it again. And it's a really simple mistake. It's when you send the customer a PDF proof or any proof, and they just send you back, or you speak to them and they say, it's okay, good to go. And no one's ever signed it or put it in writing, right?
Need it in writing.
Oh, no. Yes, you do. But I guess those were the days of when I believed that you just trusted people. And when everyone's rushing and in the go, I wanted to make it quicker, get it done on time, and deliver the goods. And sure enough, every single time that happened, you delivered the goods. The customer's like, well, either they're like, I didn't sign it. Well, no, you told me verbally. Or I like when they say, I've signed it, but you should know better. Right? I'm like, no. Don't. If you sign it, you know better. Right? Yeah. But I stopped. At one point, I just stopped. I used to tell the customer, I know we're rushing, but if you can't take the time to get it signed and back to me, then I can't rush. You have to put the onus back on the customer because we'll always eat it in the end. Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah.
So what would be the most expensive mistake you've ever made on a job with a customer? I know my number. I'm writing it down right now. Anybody?
Wow, I can write it down also.
$80,000? $80,000?
Yeah.
Whoa. One moment.
Hey, if you listen, you want to play with the big boys, you fall like the big boys, right? It's a different ballgame. And I'll tell you, actually, I don't even have the sample here because I know
you're doing 40,000 euros.
40,000 euros? Yeah. I win.
Boy.
Yeah, you win.
I win.
I feel
you have a bigger mouth.
Contest here.
Chris?
I haven't had anything big, thank God, so far.
Oh, God, that's good. Well, and that mistake was our mistake. It was the most beautiful book we were doing for a company, and we had to change something on the cover at the last minute before going to press. And when my team changed up the cover and redid all the plates, there was a circle on the cover and half the circle came off. Like it was not on there when we printed. Nobody noticed. The book was printed on a 200M, mounted to a 48-point cover, pages inserted, coil bound, the whole thing assembled. Comes to me, I look at it, I'm so excited. I even send the customer an email and I say, oh my God, your job looks great. And we ship it off. I even make the invoice. And 24 hours later, I get a phone call, says, Warren, the cover's wrong. It didn't come out right. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I go look at it. And I was like, slowly just sinking in my chair, like till I was down to there. And I'm like, no, tell me it's not so. And it was like, oh my God. And all you could do is go back on and try and fix something that's not even fixable. Redo the whole thing.
But Warren, how many people were looking at that book while it was printing, while it was being fabricated, while it was being packed? How many eyes were on that book and nobody caught that mistake? It's amazing how people. There was the color copy or a proof. You know, it'll go through tons of eyes, and you know, it's almost like they get into like a robot mode, and that's why typically I'm always in the middle of everything. I'm right in the middle of the jobs being run. I'll walk around, I'll just peek at everything because sometimes people go into almost like an automatic.
For sure.
Not looking at, it's the front cover, it's the front page, right? But there's 10, 12 eyes on it, and nobody knows.
It was the front cover, and there was a bunch of little blue dots on the cover, and one of the dots was just cut in half. And it was just, it was when on the screen, it was great. It's when it came out of the plate, you pick up the plate right out of the machine and you run to go put it on the press.
That's it. Nobody looks.
But I think in our business, it's unfortunate because we try so hard and we have so many processes, and a lot of companies do. And then it's always the job when you least have the time, when it's that critical job where you're being looked at, where you're being judged by, that something slips through the cracks and then comes back and bites you in the behind, right?
Yeah.
It's like a Murphy's Law thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's I've seen books where you do the book binding, and we would send out our binding to a trade shop because we weren't doing perfect binding, and you come back and you open up the book in the middle and the pages are upside down of the same language.
Yeah.
Talking about books, because you all talked about jobs that went wrong. But did you ever invest in hardware, in machinery, that you said after a few months from, okay, this is useless, and it was sucking air for the next 10 years in your business or in your company?
175,000 euros.
Okay.
Tell us, please.
In software.
In software.
Yeah, we bought a software solution to personalize print in the early days of 2002, I guess, something like that.
Does it start with an X?
No, it doesn't start with an X. No,
okay.
no, that was the second one. But we're still using the second one, and I'm being president of the X. I'm still very happy with it, so that's not a real issue.
That's true.
Yeah, but the first one, which we bought, it was called, I don't know if the company still exists. It's called MediaBase. It was a Dutch solution and a digital asset management system where you could also personalize print, and we needed it for a large publisher in Holland and also in the US to fulfill their needs on personalized print. And the way we bought it, it was not the best way. We didn't have the right staff at that moment. We didn't have the right knowledge. The backup from the supplier was not good. The program itself was too difficult, not good enough. And after a few years, 2 years to 3 years of learning and putting money in it, we said, well, this had to stop, and that's why we bought the X and Pi.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Everything with an X is no good, huh?
No, not true, Warren. At
Actually,
least in my.
It starts off rough. How's that?
Yeah, well, it's a rough ride. That's correct, but that's the same. That's the same when we started with X and Pi. In the early days of 2005 or so, we got 2 or 3 DVDs from New York City, and it came by post and said, "Here you go, 3 DVDs." Yeah, and now what? Sold by X. Then you know enough. Sorry, and that's also a very steep learning curve to get where you want to be, but because of the failure with MediaBase, I was so very persistent that I needed the success of X and Pi, and that's what we did. So when you have something done very stupidly and you invested a lot of money in a stupid software solution, you need to earn it back. So that's what we did. So
yeah, Chris, did you have some hardware, software investments that you think, oh shoot, that's really fuck up in the business?
Well, for me, it was good. I mean, I worked for another company for a long time, and I knew what worked and I knew what didn't work. There were a couple investments at the other company that the amount of money that was spent for a piece of equipment just to sit there after using it once or twice was completely mind-blowing. And those particular couple pieces of equipment, I didn't invest in. So I had a little bit of a leadway as far as knowing what to and what not to buy. So luckily, and I'm not a huge company. Again, I'm a small business, 5 years old, in the industry long enough where I know what to buy and what not to buy. But some of the equipment, like 5-meter, like billboard printers, where, if you go down to the Carolinas, they're selling this stuff for like 30 cents a square foot. For you to buy that, and up by New York, Pennsylvania area, you're just not going to get the amount of money to validate that piece of equipment. It just doesn't make any sense. So things like that I've seen, and again, they're like $500,000 pieces of equipment that were vested into, and basically just sat around and let the ink dry up in the lines. So fortunately, I know what to buy, not what to buy, what not to buy as well. So
what is your advice for people who are starting their business, or maybe are already running their business and want to invest in, especially from what Jerome said about software and hardware? What could be a good process to avoid these pitfalls?
This is a big secret. Have the work first. Don't buy a piece of equipment and then try to find the work. That doesn't make any sense, because it's not going to magically appear. It's not going to magically come with a piece of equipment. Have the work first, source it out somewhere locally. Then once you start generating some business, for me, for example, like I have a CNC router. So, the first couple of years of business, I did a lot of CNC routing. We had to source it out. We had to run back and forth, and it was a big headache. But not for nothing, at least the following year, I could look back and say, hey, I did X amount of dollars in CNCing, pin mount letters, route cutting acrylic, polishing edges. It makes sense for me to get that piece of equipment, invest the money. Let's get it in-house as opposed to running back and forth and wasting all that time and labor and gas doing that. So have the work before you buy the piece of equipment. Even what I think Warren said, they'd source out like the bindery. If you get to a point where, and bindery, I guess there's a ton of manpower you need for that. So if you do a certain amount of dollars in bindery and you can afford the square footage, hey, let's get the equipment in here. Let's not just start buying equipment and trying to, then telling the salespeople, hey, go out there and start finding work for this piece of equipment. That's not how to do it. You're going to go out of business very fast.
So first the public, then the product, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
One thing I remembered, and I didn't learn so well. I learned after a little while. With me, it always takes a little while to learn, right? You get a little bump in the head. But I used to love equipment, and I used to love to be the first. So being the first had really some great benefits in that you're the first, and everyone talked about it. But what usually happened with being the first is it didn't work so well, right? So
you need a couple generations to work all the bugs out. Yeah, you're the guinea pig.
Yeah. You got to let people work out, and it's exciting to be the first, but the machines don't always work the right way. They don't deliver on time. You have problems and mistakes. Yeah. So you definitely want to think twice. The other thing I wanted to say about when we were talking about equipment and buying and mistakes, actually, it's the word of advice. I was always part of different peer groups with different printers to be able to discuss things that go on. Never, ever did I, except for when I wanted to be the first, other than wanting to be the first, I always conferred with my peer groups. I always called the people that I knew to check with them and see what they're doing, right? I mean, I love the manufacturers and I love buying, but the one thing is on this topic is you can't listen to them because they're there to sell you, right? So just turn to your peers and get involved in a peer group or something where you could at least return give some questions, get some information. You could save some big money and big headaches and big mistakes.
Yeah. So don't believe the vendors. Second.
No.
Don't believe the guy who wants to put the money in the pocket.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's, or you got to find out
whatever you want to hear.
No, but they got to be willing. Any of the vendors have to be willing to do something with you to help you build it. So I used to say to them, okay, what can we do together to promote it? I don't want to just promote the machine. I only have a 12-month window because I have it first to try to make back some of that ROI. Because after that, you're going to give the machine away at a lower price to somebody else because you got to move them.
Yeah.
Right. So there's all those reasons of learning. But this is a never-ending game of mistakes, and it doesn't really matter whose they are. Between the two of you, can you think of a mistake that your customer made, right? That maybe was on something that they really needed and with a deadline. And what did you do when that happened?
Then we're going to help them to solve this problem. And yes, we make mistakes like everybody, but also the customer. So there's no need to get excited for that. And what we also do is when there's a real failure of the customer, we try to do it to keep it to make it good. But on the other end, then he has to pay twice. And if it's a nice customer, I'm always doing the second one for a better price.
Sure.
So it always costs me money, but it's also a double work, and I'm not charging him the real double, but just a little bit less, so something like that.
For me in particular, a major mistake that the customer had, I could do it back and forth with this one particular customer. It was a major shoe distributor. So, the mistake, I guess maybe one of the biggest mistakes that I made or my team made was, we received all these art files. Of course, everything's always a rush. Going out to all kinds of flagship stores, banners, riser wraps, all floor graphics. They sent files, and for some reason they sent it with an RGB white. And this is early on. This must have been about 12 years ago when RIPs were just getting started. And instead it used to be PostScript files before it was PDFs. So for whatever reason, the RIP didn't interpret the RGB white as a knockout white, and it completely disregarded it. So all the text was missing. And again, I'm prepping the files. I'm giving color copies to the guys. Nobody saw it in the entire building. And again, it happens, but so that went out. And what happens to me too is financially, it's not just a banner. It's not just a decal. It's the cost for shipping to California, next day air. It's the cost of shipping all over the country. Then it's getting the installers to stop what they're doing. And the installers have to come back out there. They have to charge to remove the old graphics. They have to charge to install the new graphics. And before you know it, something that costs you like $50 ends up being about $800 from a mistake. So that was probably my biggest mistake. Again, there's so many parties involved, but again, the same customer, again, major shoe brand, they sent me, this is actually Michael Jordan. This is kind of a funny story, but they sent me artwork and it was going out to Foot Lockers. I'm looking at it. We send PDF for approval. They approve it. And I'm looking at it. I go, this is Michael Jordan. He's wearing a jersey and he's doing like a slam dunk. And it was like a Bopsy model, like a 3D model, but he didn't have any shorts on. And I go, hey, I know you approved the PDF, but I'm just doing my due diligence. I just want to double check. He's not wearing pants. There's no shorts. Oh my God, because this was going out. We were screen printing these banners. They were hanging in the windows of all the Foot Lockers across the country. And that guy, I said something. So, it's a back and forth. There's always a constant back and forth with the customers. That would have been some, mustard all over their face, basically, if that got out there and he doesn't have any pants and he's, slam dunking a basketball in the storefront of every Foot Locker across the country. So that was kind of an interesting one. That was one of the more interesting ones I've come across in my years.
Hey, all publicity is good publicity for everybody, right? So
I might have ruined it for him. Yeah.
Question for both of you in your experience. What happens when it's two-part? What happens when you make a mistake and you have to deal with it and your customer's waiting and you have to get it out? That's part one. Yeah. And then part two is, how is your customer with you when they make a mistake?
Yeah. So for me, if I make a mistake, I know some people in the industry, they'll never take any blame for anything that happens. And for some reason, the customers come back. Why? I have no idea. But if I realize there's a mistake, even before the customer sees it, if it goes out, I get on the phone. This is what you don't send an email. Get on the phone, call them up. Hey, not for nothing, I fucked up. Something happened. We used the wrong material. Didn't realize it till it got out the door. And that goes a long way, rather than trying to hide behind it or point fingers or say, you sent me the file and maybe the RIP interpreted the data incorrectly. Getting on the phone, your customers come to you because they trust you. And when something goes wrong, you get on the phone, have a conversation with them. Hey, this is what happened. This is maybe what we could do to resolve it. I think that's very, very powerful in the industry, rather than pointing the finger at each other or blaming.
But I'm asking, are they mutually respectful with you? Because I found sometimes you make a mistake, they pounce on you because they're panicking, right? And then they make a mistake, they want a favor. Can you do them a favor on the price? So do they do you a favor when you make a mistake and pay you more?
They do. My particular customers, they do. It's a back and forth and it's a mutual respect. And again, I have, 200 customers. I have a lot of customers I do a lot of volume with, and we all get along, talk with the installer, talk with the customers, call them up on the weekend, have the cell phones. It's a mutual respect that we all have, with one another. And, one other thing I just want to kind of throw in there too, if your project manager or your salesperson makes a mistake, don't tell them to say something to the customer that you would never have the balls to say. Tell the customer they're paying for it. It's their fault. Just because you're the boss and you don't have to have the confrontation. Get on the phone, talk with your project manager or the salesperson, have a conversation with it, get the customer on the phone and have a resolve, instead of putting them in a place where, they're telling me to do this and I think it's the wrong thing. The salesperson's not going to stay around there. The customer's not going to stay around there because you're an egomaniac. Be a realistic, feel a little bit down, take some of the air out of the balloon and come down to earth.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Oh,
if
so
you pay
true.
a customer if you pay a customer respect, then you get it back also. That's what
100%.
we're trying
But
to
if,
say.
but I mean, it's funny. I just wrote something this morning in a post somewhere about respect, and you know what happened to the days of everyone just respecting everyone because we're people.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to the days of when we actually made money in this business.
Well,
Right.
there's
It was a long time ago.
No, but it's what Chris just said. If there's a mutual respect, you can continue with the client. If there's no respect, mutual, and if the customer is mistreating you and you would like something to solve, you have to make up your mind to say, would I like to continue with this customer? Because if
That's
it happens once, it's going to happen the second time, the third time, and the fourth time. And before you know, 50% of your company is stressed out because of one client or customer.
And we have some customers in that respect that every time they get a job done at Jubal's, then there's something missing or something wrong, and it's probably it's the interaction between the company and the client. I really don't know, but some customers do have that, but most of them are very
So
good.
if you have a customer that seems to be problematic on a regular basis, whatever the problem is, how many
Kick them
problems
out.
do you allow before you fire them?
Oh, that depends on the on the dollar. Yeah.
For me in particular, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do, especially having a small business, is telling a customer goodbye. We have so many clients, and it's so hard to get customers into the door in the first place. And the last thing on earth you want to do is tell somebody you don't want to do business with them anymore. But if you're doing work for customers where you're working on the weekend, you're working through the night, and you don't get paid for 90, 120 days, you have to call them up all the time. Just like, hey, not for nothing, this relationship just isn't working out.
That's lack of respect.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is 100%. That's the hardest thing I had to do, and I only had to do it once.
And does it also give relief?
Relief?
Yeah, because I can imagine if you decide to say goodbye to a disrespectful customer from time to time, it frees your brain. It gives you some extra space to do other things.
It's actually financial relief. It's mental relief.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually
focus on the profitable customer.
The best thing about when you get rid of a bad customer, your entire staff looks at you in a different way and is now thankful because your staff already knows the customers that are taking down the shop and wasting their time and creating an emotional nightmare within the place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that has to be done, I think, a little more often.
Okay. Hey, I've got another question for three of you because you all had, Warren, you had your print shop of your business. Jeroen and Chris are still in business. You hired staff in the past. And Jeroen, you're not allowed to talk about me because I worked for you. So you hired staff.
I did some very stupid things in my life.
Exactly. Well, you hired staff in the past.
Yeah.
Well, did you ever hire a nitwit or weirdo that you regret and said, "Oh, okay, I learned something of this person, or otherwise I will never do it again"?
I never had an idiot working for me.
Because you're the biggest.
Many idiots working for me.
Yeah, really.
I had an IT guy working for me, and he was a good friend of my sister, a young guy, 22 years old, and it was in the first days of the Bitcoins, and he was mining on our servers.
Using your power? Was he using your power?
Yeah.
Smart guy.
So go.
Yeah.
But still, after many years, we find some things which are fucked up in the system. And when you use his password, because he was a little bit stupid, he used the same password everywhere, then you can check it again. But anyway, I was so astonished that no. But I was astonished that somebody who was almost in the family was doing these kind of things. That's amazing.
They don't care.
So, yeah, incredible.
Good people are good people, and everybody else you have to keep an eye on. Unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, did you hire someone?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I've been around a lot of people, and I've worked in a couple different places, and being around the toxic personalities, it affects everybody. It affects one particular guy I had when I first started. I basically kind of, I almost like met people and hired them. And, for being like 40 years old and somebody's not employed, I didn't really ask what was wrong. I said, when can you start? So I had a guy come in and, it was almost like the guy was like walking cancer. Everywhere he went, everybody just moved away. Nobody wanted to work with this particular guy. Every time I left the business, it was constantly like arguments. Even my employees are telling me, this is having this back and forth with this guy. So you know what? Don't be afraid to fire a toxic personality. That's super important for the morale of everybody else in the business and for your own mental sanity. If you think you're going to take off for a week and fire a startup because of this particular person, get rid of them.
Yeah,
everybody's got them. Some people don't want to admit it. Get rid of them.
Yeah. Oh, I also think that more often than not, our guts tell us the truth, and we don't always follow our guts.
It's convenient. It's convenient just to let it be to a certain degree because you have to hire, you have to train. It's a lengthy process.
I think I had a couple.
Everything.
I think I had a couple of people working for me at the end that I probably never should have had working with me that are responsible for some of my demise. I mean, I'm not passing the buck with what happened at my company, but I had a couple of people that were actually, I'm going to say, hated and mistrusted by everyone. And because of my own limitations at the time, I was nervous, I was scared. There was a whole bunch of reasons that I didn't get rid of them. And it was a big, bad move in the end. Yeah. And everyone in the building knew it. People actually told me. Like people actually
in your gut, you knew the whole time that.
I knew the whole time, and I didn't act on it.
Yep.
Right. So I just word of advice to everybody: your gut usually doesn't lie.
Yep.
Right. No matter what, whether it's the type of beer you're drinking that you like or you don't like, or the person you're hiring.
Yeah.
But you never finish the beer. You don't like. You only finish the ones.
Yeah, you
like.
dump it out.
Exactly.
And is this something that because you said about gut feelings, and is it also talking about leadership to taking the first step to say, okay, this is not okay, and take some action, or do you forget it because you're busy with running your business, finance, staff, jobs, everything, and then you don't make time to make these kind of decisions?
Ooh, that gets tough. I mean, me for like being a small business, my way to kind of rectify it was having a conversation with it, then coming up with a list of procedures and what's acceptable and not acceptable, and then coming up with like a write-up form. And you do that like when you get into a certain mood, to be honest with you. And it's me and I have like 6-7 guys with me, and then when it gets really hard to enforce it depending on your mood. And again, someone you've been training for 3 years to run a particular piece of equipment a certain way. You're like, we're going to do this. And it's almost like you're trying to scare them a little bit. But, push comes to shove. If you really need that person, you need them. But again, it's the whole time in your gut, what the right decision is. And luckily for me, I was able to finally make that without allowing it to go on for too long. So
it's the fear factor that prevents you sometimes from making those right decisions, right? You wonder, oh my God, I know it's not right to have them here, but if I get rid of them, I'm void of a body or two, and how am I going to get it out? And better to deal with the evil that you know than the evil you don't know, and you start to rationalize and all that other stuff, right?
Yep.
And again, you know what? I used to refer to my peer group sometimes and talk to others that I knew within the industry when I let myself go too far. Because sometimes you go a little bit too far. You don't know how to get out of it. You need someone to like hit you in the head and go, dummy, what are you thinking? And you're like, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yep.
Simple as that.
Okay. Gents, we are 44 minutes almost talking about this topic. But we have to wrap up because otherwise people start... get asleep and don't get the attention. But do we have?
I have lunch. You have dinner.
Yeah, I already had my dinner. So
you had your dinner.
I had my dinner before we started. So
I still need to.
Yeah. Do we have any tips or advice for people who are watching to avoid some fuck ups? Like I think what the lesson I learned from your conversation is have a peer group or a network where you can talk with about decisions, about staff, investment, finance.
I think that would be one of the better recommendations that I could make. We are running in a business that's super capital intensive. If that's a message for me, just
I'll put it on hold for you.
But we're in a business that's super capital intensive with low margin for the most part overall, with just a lot of manpower and skill required. You do need to surround yourself with some good people. You shouldn't second guess, and you should go with your gut, especially for those of us that have been around a little while and been beaten up enough. The world in the world of what we do has changed, and we need to embrace it and be a little smarter and rely on some others within our networks.
Be yourself, and when you fuck up, in what way? Always think about the positive side, and don't go negative. And there's gonna be a new sunrise every morning, so it's okay.
Chris,
what do they say? When there's a situation, you spend 80%, 90% of your time flipping out, freaking out, can't breathe. And then when you finally deal with it, it's like everyone generally, even when there's a problem, right? When there's a problem and you're freaking out, your customer's going to kill you. 9.5 out of 10 times, when you deal with it straight up and call, they always say, no problem. We're going to figure it out. It's okay. But the anxiety that you build up till you get there isn't worth it anymore.
I agree 100%. That's my thing. If there's a mistake, call up, have a conversation with it as soon as you can. Project manager, salesman, make a mistake, have a conversation with them. You call up, get on a group call, have a conference, call about and talk about how to work it out, and try not to throw anybody under the bus, or try not to tell someone you're going to do something that you wouldn't do yourself talking to the customer.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else, gentlemen, to share?
I'm good.
About it.
Okay.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. Fuck Up Friday, Monday. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining the first broadcast. We'll try to repeat it next week or within 2 weeks to find some other people to join us. Please do share it online. And if you have any questions, you can find Jeroen van Drunen, Chris Rodke, and Warren online. And we will add all the profiles and information in the comments online and on YouTube so that people can share and share this for us and for themselves. And this is free material for all the education schools, for the business schools, right?
That's true too. Where else can you get life experiences for free?
Yeah, exactly.
They've cost me
YouTube.
millions
Millions of dollars, huh?
YouTube for free.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many viewers did you have?
On this one?
Just lie.
Well, for sure, there's the 4 of us.
Yeah.
My YouTube stat is telling me there's 3, but I think from what I understand, each of you has a wife, a friend, or a relative looking.
Yeah.
So maybe not too many, but we're hoping on the replay that there's tens of thousands.
Yeah, I think the real fuck ups comes when we have to go downstairs and get the comments of our wives.
Yeah, exactly.
No, thank you very much. I know from my this is the 4th broadcast I did on my channel, is that the live viewers are always low by default because we are not Gary Vaynerchuk. But the reality is it starts spinning, and within it will increase massively, because I think my first broadcast or second broadcast had 12 live viewers, but it was reviewed 700 times again. So you can't predict it what it will do, but I think with 4 of us and with some social media sharing, we will get some attention about this. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having us on.
Have a nice day, evening, dinner, lunch, whatever.
And to everyone who's watching, we thank you, and please share and spread the word and send us your fuck ups.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We want to hear.
Yeah, send us an email or contact us if you want to be on the next broadcast. Okay. Have a nice evening and day or morning, whatever.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.